Hi, gorgeous, and welcome to the Confident, Energized, and Sexy Mama Show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host, feminine energy expert, health coach for women, registered holistic nutritionist, and the creator of the groundbreaking health and mindset program for moms, Energized, designed for perimenopausal women who are done having kids and are ready to get their confidence, energy, and sexy back. Ladies, think about it. What would the world look like if, as women, we stopped being so harsh on ourselves and instead felt more energized, powerful, confident, and more connected to our bodies? What if, as women, we honored the fact that we are built and wired differently than men, and being different does not mean being inferior? That the go, go, go mentality, alongside doing more to have more without ever pausing and resting, only leads to chronic stress, anxiety, burnout, overwhelm, lack of joy, and corrodes our health, relationships, and vitality. What if, as women, wives, and mothers, we had the courage and confidence to desire more? More freedom, power, energy, joy, abundance, pleasure, fun, play, and sex, all on our own terms. Mama, you deserve to feel good. You deserve to form healthy relationships, and your body needs, craves, and deserves pleasure. This is your birthright. You're here because you believe in your feminine energy. You're here because you care about health and the environment, and you're not afraid to take action and change. You're here because you don't want to pass on a pattern of self destruction, hiding, and not speaking your truth to your daughters. You're here because you're done feeling stuck, living a mediocre life as a half woman. You're here because you are done struggling and, frankly, can no longer afford to feel like crap. Each week, I will be here for you, dropping a healthy dose of inspiration and motivation, as well as introducing you to my brilliant guests, where we will dive deep into all things womanhood, feminine power, energy, psychology, holistic and alternative health, food, nutrition, hormones, fitness, mindset, motherhood, relationships, sex, business, and much more. So, Mama, are you ready to take back control of your health? Let's do this. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Confident, Energized, and Sexy Mama podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. I'm super excited for today's episode. In today's show, you will hear me chat with Deborah Maragopoulos. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She is a family nurse practitioner specializing in neuro-immune-endocrinology. She's also known as the Hormone Queen, and she became pretty much an expert in gender identity, hormones, and DNA after the birth of her intersex child. I've connected with Deborah after hearing her on other respected podcasts, and I just loved her story, her message, and her approach resonated so much with me, and so I wanted to have her on here. The way it happened actually was pretty cool. I've shared a message. I've done a post on Facebook, and then she was actually one of the people who responded to it, which was pretty cool. And she offered to be a guest on the show. And so I obviously right away jumped on the opportunity. We scheduled the time, and a week later, here we are having this conversation. So today we are talking all about hormones. I know we've done some episodes, many episodes about hormones and hormonal health, and you guys know that I'm all about helping you create a sustainable flow within your body and having a healthy flow of hormones and the way the hormones work inside of the body. It's a huge piece of this puzzle. But today we are going to specifically focus on how your menstrual cycle responds to stress. So as of now, I'm recording this on May the 6th of 2020. We are way into day, I think it's about week 10 of quarantine. And stress is something that is all around us. And a lot of women, I think the majority of women, are responding through having their menstrual cycles going haywire. So today you will hear me talking to Deborah, and she will share her story of birthing an intersex child, and then her desire to understand hormones to support her child, which is how this journey started for her. I think the story is fascinating, and even though she really told it in a nutshell, I'm hoping to bring her on back again very soon so that she can elaborate more. And then we get into, talking about the hypothalamus and its role in hormonal health, what's going on with our female bodies right now, why are our cycles going haywire. We've used my personal experience as a case study. And we talked about the connection between adrenals and the ovaries. We talked also a little bit about exercise and if there is such a thing as bad exercise. She talked about the adrenal glands producing cortisol, and if there is exercise that we should be steering away from, especially right now, as high intensity exercise produces more cortisol, which we really don't need more of right now. And so she talks about that as well, and about better types of exercise for us as women. We also talked about what we can do nutritionally to support the production of progesterone, which is a sex hormone our bodies right now at this point, at least for me, is struggling with. And then we talked about also male hormones and how the men in our lives, how their bodies respond to current stress, and what we as their wives, as their partners, what we can do to support their well-being. And then in the end, of course, Deborah shared her definition of feminine power, as well as what makes her feel confident, energized, and sexy as a woman. I think this is a very important interview, which will help you understand your body better so that you don't panic, so that you don't stress too much or feel like you're losing control over your body. And at this point, the stress is so high. We are so confused. We are under so many conflicting ideas and opposing strategies in terms of how to cope and to manage. And when are the kids going to go back to school? Like, there's just so much uncertainty right now. And if there's one thing that we need to really really hone into, in my opinion, is to feel really connected to our bodies and feel really grounded and centered. And so, as you will hear in this interview, I'm going through the same thing. We're really in this together. My body's responding to this pandemic as well. I'm going through this alongside you. And right now, what works really well for me is educating and empowering myself with knowledge, with ideas and practical action steps that I can do instead of, being in this perpetual state of what if, right? Which induces more panic and more drama and more uncertainty and more stress. So really, Deborah is a powerhouse of information, knowledge, and expertise, and I hope you will enjoy listening to her as much as I did interviewing her. So enjoy listening. Let me know if you have any questions. Find me over at Instagram at Dorit Palvanov Coaching. And without further ado, here's my interview with Deborah. Enjoy. Hi, Deborah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited that we're connected. It's really like a godly plan. I was planning to reach out to you, and then I posted a post on Facebook, and you replied to it, and I said, "Oh, this is my chance to have her on." So I'm glad that you're finally here. I've heard your interviews in a couple of different podcasts that I follow, and I just love First of all, I love your energy. I love your knowledge. I love your work. I've tried even some of your supplements. And so I'm excited to dive into this conversation. And the reason why I'm having you here today is because there are a lot of women in my community, among my clients, my past clients, and just, family members and my friends who are female who are really struggling hormonally right now. And so as of today, it is the 6th of May. We are way into, I think for us, it's the 10th week of the lockdown.
Okay.
And so there's a lot that is going on. And so before we go there, I want listeners to hear your story, because you have a pretty powerful story, how you even got into working with hormones and supporting people with their hormonal health. So if we can start there, that would be great.
Okay. So first of all, my name is Deborah Maragopoulos. I'm a family nurse practitioner. And I know in Canada, you don't have nurse practitioners, but basically we're like a family doctor, except for we're trained in the nursing field with more wellness as our barometer rather than disease. So, and a lot of education goes into it. So I've been a family nurse practitioner since 1987. And I actually dove into that as a field of study when I delivered my firstborn child in 1984. And that baby was born intersex. Now, at the time, there was not the terminology of intersexuality. I was told I had an XY female, XY chromosome, but female appearance. I had had a dream that I had had a baby boy before I even conceived. I saw the child exactly, blonde hair, blue eyes. Who would have thunk it? Sure enough, this is what I deliver prematurely, but the genitals weren't formed. So against medical advice, I followed my mother's intuition and said, let's follow the chromosomes and let's not cut anything off to make this child a girl, which is what they wanted to do. And so we raised the child based on the presenting genitalia and the chromosomes and let it decide, later. And that made me dive into everything about hormones, sex hormones, growth hormone. The child also had growth hormone deficiencies. I was learning everything possible about hormones and receptor sites just to save my child from the system. In the meantime, becoming more and more of an expert, moved from family practice to women's health and then back to family practice, and developed an expertise in what's called neuro-immune-endocrinology, which is the study of all of the hormones per se of the body. That includes the neurotransmitters and the immune factors, the cytokines, as well as all of the traditional endocrine hormones. So, and I've had that practice, an integrative practice since 1987, integrating complementary therapies, nutritional therapies. I developed my own supplement to balance out the hypothalamus, which we'll talk a lot more about the hypothalamus in this, in order to support my patients. Personally, as a woman, I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, which basically means I had runner's amenorrhea. So I was very, very thin. I was anorexic by the age of 14, before there was even the terminology of anorexia. I'm 59. So, Karen Carpenter hadn't died. We didn't know what anorexia was. The pediatrician was saying, just feed that child. And my mother and father were saying, well, she won't eat. And by the time I was in college, it turned into bulimia. My body weight was way low, never had a period on my own that wasn't induced by like a progesterone shot in the butt kind of a thing. But I was able to conceive. I literally dreamt both of my children before I conceived them and had exactly what I saw. So I was kind of an enigma. I knew my body would turn on when it needed to, but I was hormonally challenged, quite hormonally challenged. And so part of my work, besides with my child, was to try to figure out, how do I stay healthy and age healthily without hormones? And I knew that wasn't possible. And that, between my child and my practice and myself, led to me developing a supplement to balance out the hypothalamus so that our hormones would be healthy again. So at the age of about 39, I finally started having normal periods after almost 25 years without having periods. Normal periods on my own, which kept me from going into menopause until I started perimenopause at 49 and didn't have my last period till last year at 58, which is way older than any of my sisters. They started in their mid 40s. And my mom, I think, had her last period about mid 50s. So I swear by nutritionally supporting the hypothalamus to keep things as balanced as possible.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's
Which
kind of
is why
my
yeah.
story in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know it is a nutshell. Which is why I really gravitated and resonated with you, because I also am a registered holistic nutritionist, and I believe that the body, mind, spirit are so interconnected. And when you talk about you being an intuitive, integrative medical professional, I think this is the right way, or I'm not going to say the right way, because we all have our own opinions, but I just dream of the day where the majority, if not all, medical professionals are going to be that. You were talking about dreams. I've had this very similar experiences where you just know, and especially for us as women, our intuition. And when this intuition is something that is encouraged and something that we actually learn how to develop more of, I think not only do we become more powerful, but we actually have so much more impact on our families and the work that we do in the world and in terms of our own health. So I absolutely love everything that you're talking about. I know the hypothalamus plays a huge role. So why don't we start there, and then maybe you can then shift to talking about what is going on right now. It's very clear to me and to all the women listening that our bodies are, and this is where it's brilliant, our bodies are responding to the stress that is happening, whether it is nutritional stress, whether it is actually nervous system stress, whatever, and obviously what's going around, having our kids at home 24/7. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, Deborah, Deborah or Deborah?
Deborah. Yeah.
Deborah. Okay. In Hebrew, I would call you Dvorah.
Yes, that's Hebrew. It. Yes, that's actually I'm Italian, but my mother named me this Hebrew name.
Oh yeah, Deborah. Yes. This is actually my Hebrew name, Deborah. Yeah, Deborah. Do you know what it means in Hebrew?
Isn't it something like the keeper of the bees? Or
yes.
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 Okay.
Yes. Queen bee.
Queen bee. Okay.
So
well, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Totally a queen. So I can tell you that for me, what happened was, my period has always been like on the dot, very regular, 28 days. And, it was just like clock. And thank goodness it's been beautiful, wonderful. Then a couple of, I would say maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to take out my IUD. So I've had a copper IUD, and I've talked about this many times on the podcast, so my listeners know. And I started to practice the fertility awareness method.
Okay.
And so I started measuring my BBT, my basal body temperature, and I started checking my cervical mucus and the cervical positioning and all that. So all of those symptoms were kind of fine, but except that around day 21, I've had very strange, I've never had this before, spotting. It was bleeding, like it was blood, but I didn't even need to change my regular normal liners. Like it was that light. Right. And normally, like, it's very, 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 very unusual for me. Then so right now, after this went away, so that was going on for about a week. Now I'm in day 43 of my cycle, and I haven't gotten my period yet. Now, I haven't done a pregnancy test, but from my basal body temperature and the cervical positioning and the cervical mucus, it looks like I'm not pregnant. So what is going on? And I know there are some women who are getting their period really, really early or really, really late, and it's like all over the place. So first I want to understand what's happening.
Okay. So that's a really good opening, because it definitely involves the hypothalamus. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about where the hypothalamus is, and I'm going to circle back to the periods because it's all connected. So your hypothalamus is right here. okay, right in the brows chakra. And I want you to think about your hypothalamus as the operating systems of you as a human computer. So your physical body is like the hard drive, and all your hormones are the software programs, and your neurotransmitters are the software programs, and your immune system's the software programs. Without an operating system, like Microsoft is an operating system for HP, right? Without an operating system, those software programs don't function. Okay. Now the hypothalamus is unique. It's actually part of the brain. It sits above the pituitary, which hangs down like a little grape. And we think of the pituitary as the master gland, but it's really middle manager. So the hypothalamus tells the pituitary what to do. And the hypothalamus is not protected by the blood-brain barrier, which means that there's a barrier that keeps the rest of your brain completely protected from toxins, only let certain amount of like sugars and little amino acids and fatty acids, and very, very little gets to the brain, just as purified as possible. But the hypothalamus gets it all because it needs to know where you are in space and time. Have you been infected with something? What's happening out there? So what's your nutritional status? It's getting everything all the time. So, and it controls every one of your hormones, your gonads, your ovaries if you're a female, your testes if you're a male. Okay, your adrenal glands, your pancreas that produces insulin and controls your glucose metabolism, your thymus, which controls your immune system, it's in your heart chakra, your thyroid, which controls your metabolism, your pituitary gland, which besides being the middle manager, it also makes its own hormones like oxytocin and prolactin and growth hormone. That is all controlled by the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus controls the pineal gland, the day-night cycles. It tells the pineal gland when to turn on and when to turn off. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and then it also controls your immune system and your neurotransmitters, and it controls your weight set point, your temperature regulation, your sex drive, your fertility, your hunger drive, whether you're going to lay down body fat. There's not much it doesn't control. It controls your rate of aging, your moods, your memory, your ability to learn. I mean, it just controls everything. And it's ignored by medicine. We don't pay any attention to it. If you go to your physician and say, I want my hypothalamus checked, there's no way to measure hormones from it. So it really takes kind of medical detective work to figure out if the hypothalamus is out of balance in the first place. Okay. So with that being said, why are your periods irregular? So we'll just take you as a case study.
Yeah, let's use me.
Okay. So first of all, this COVID thing that we're undergoing, that's causing so much stress for so many people, and the lockdown, you guys, you're in like the 10th week, you said.
Yeah.
I think we're in our 7th or 8th week. That has been going on. Your stress, your period change happened before that, right? Did you say that? You took your IUD
yes.
out and things started shifting a little bit.
Yeah, and then I had my normal periods, and then yes.
And then, okay, so you had normal periods, you had an IUD, you took your IUD out, and the first period after that was on time?
No. I've had about 2 normal periods after I've taken my IUD out, and it was not a hormonal IUD, it was a copper IUD.
Right, copper.
Yeah, and then, it all started.
Okay. So first of all, the way the copper IUD works, do you know the way it works?
What do you mean? How does
the way it prevents you from getting pregnant?
Oh, so the copper, yeah. Okay,
yeah, it creates an inflammatory response.
Yes.
In the uterus and the fallopian tubes, which makes the mucus a little thicker. So it acts like a barrier method, keeping the sperm from getting up into the cervix, the sperm and the egg from getting together in the fallopian tube, and possibly implantation from occurring because of this mild inflammatory response that's going on. That's what the copper does. So it is a barrier method, but because it's an inflammatory response, once you pulled it out, now there's some healing that has to occur. Okay. So this is before COVID hit and the stress of COVID. Your body had its own little physical stressor it had to deal with just healing up the lining of the cervix, the uterus, the fallopian tube, and get you back to a normal hormonal milieu. The other factor is most physicians, and especially gynecology, they do not believe that the uterus, the cervix, and the fallopian tubes have anything to do with the endocrine, the hormone communication between the ovaries and the hypothalamus, but they do. Okay.
This is where this is like it sounds crazy to me. Like, how can they not see this? Okay. Continue.
So they do. And I'll tell you a real classic way that we know that for sure this happens, and there's actually studies on this, is after a woman has a tubal ligation where her fallopian tubes are cut, ligated, burnt, stapled, whatever, so that she's sterilized. Yeah. The majority of women after that will have hormonal imbalances, particularly be very low in progesterone, which suggests that they're not ovulating regularly. And that can last anywhere from a couple months to over a year. And so the belief was maybe there's something going on with when the doctor goes in and he's doing all this snipping, that he messes up with the circulation a little bit and causes some interference. No, we know there are receptor sites within the fallopian tube, the uterus, the cervix that are all communicating via the ovary and the hypothalamus that the pathways are clear. It's kind of like a traffic jam. Now we've got a traffic jam. Something's wrong here. And so it messes up that communication between the ovary and the hypothalamus. And that's a negative feedback. So the sense is kind of like a little seesaw. So that if you're not making enough estrogen, your follicle stimulating hormones high. And if you're not making enough progesterone, your luteinizing hormones high. So it's this constant balance, this seesaw balance, we call it a negative feedback system, between the hypothalamus and the ovary. Now the pituitary is in between there, but there's something called gonadal release gonadotropins, which release factors that allow the pituitary to then respond to whether it's estrogen or progesterone that needs to be stimulated. So your first assault was your body had to heal from the inflammation from the copper IUD and reestablish the communication network. The roads had to be opened up. The communication from one traffic light to the next had to be opened up to say, okay, everything's good. And then COVID hit. Yeah. And you had children at home, and you were locked up, and you weren't sure if your grandparents were going to die because, somebody delivered them contaminated food, the plastic. I mean, everybody's worried and everybody's stressed, and you're living all together under one household, which is great, except you're not used to it. You're used to having a break. Yeah. Now mommy has to work, and she has to be, taking
care of the kids and homeschool.
And she has to be a therapist, and she has to be like a decontamination processor, decontaminating everything coming into the house. Yeah. All of a sudden you have all this stress on your system. So why does your period become irregular? So progesterone is the hormone that is produced in the luteal phase, the last half of the cycle when you ovulate. Okay. Mm-hmm. Day 21 on a 28-day cycle is peak progesterone time. Yeah. Your spotting suggests you didn't have enough progesterone, because what is progesterone's job in the uterus but to stabilize the lining, to actually make the lining, which has been built up by estrogen, stable enough to allow implantation to occur if fertilization occurs. Okay. If you don't have enough progesterone, you will shed it off and you'll have an early miscarriage before you even know you were pregnant. Okay. So progesterone is key to stabilizing that lining, but it's also key for the adrenal glands to use. The adrenals use progesterone to produce stress hormones, particularly cortisol. Okay. So when you're under stress, your adrenals rob your progesterone from your uterus and ovaries and utilize it to make enough cortisol. And what is cortisol? Cortisol is the hormone that fuels your fight or flight to get away from danger. Now, I know you're not running from a tiger with your children, your husband, but your hypothalamus is still responding in the same way. This is not normal. Why am I caved up with all the cubs and the papa bear? Like, what's happening here? Why can't I see the sunlight? Why am I not going outside? Why am I hearing all this bad news, like growls outside of the cave? The hypothalamus is getting you ready for a fight or a flight. And so it's constantly triggering the adrenal glands to be on the ready. And the adrenals are robbing the ovaries of progesterone.
And I wanted to ask, isn't this also like a protective mechanism, because the body is telling you, girl, this is not time to conceive. You need to run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I mean, if you truly were in danger, well, even now, God forbid you get sick. You can track this virus. We haven't seen that it's transmitted to the babies, to the fetus. So far, all the babies born of COVID-19 moms have been fine, but you'll easily transmit it afterwards because it's respiratory, and babies under 3 months old don't do so well with it. The hypothalamus realizes there's a viral assault out there. It realizes something's wrong. Something's wrong out there. This is not a safe time to have a baby. So your ovulation can actually be interrupted as well. Okay. So progesterone's being robbed, ovulation can be interrupted, which means you're going to produce less progesterone, and your periods become irregular. Spotting, when you're spotting, is kind of like the first sign. And this can happen for women who aren't reproductive. I started spotting myself at the age as old as I am last week when COVID got really close to my family. And I knew it was stress related. The amount of stress that I was under was contributing that I actually use my Genesis Gold product for the hypothalamus, but I use a little bioidentical hormones to help me transition through menopause so I don't go mentally crazy. And so there are these natural botanicals, etc. But either way, my body was robbed of the progesterone in order to fuel this fight or flight response. And so my uterus, which is still getting a little stimulus from a little bit of estrogen, a little bit of progesterone every month, which normally holds its own because it's so little, it's not reproductive levels, didn't get enough progesterone because that went to the adrenals, and I have spotted.
I think this is so genius and brilliant how the body responds. My kind of point of view on this is that it is always very important for us as women to understand how our bodies work so that we don't get too much into this panic, which we already have to begin with. Like, right. I'm just thinking, if I didn't know those things, I would be freaking out, because for me, I've closed the shop. Like, I don't want to have any more kids. Right. So I would be like driving myself even, more crazy, like not understanding what's going on with my body. So my next question for you is this. So I understand right now that there is kind of what's the word? There's activity that is happening, like the connection between the nervous system response and the endocrine system, right? So adrenals would be related. Are they more related?
They're hormones. They produce hormones, but they do produce something called adrenaline, which is actually triggered by the nervous system. The adrenals are a very interesting endocrine gland. They are not just, the ovaries are totally endocrine. Endocrine meaning they produce hormones that act distantly, other than like exocrine glands, like our salivary glands produce saliva, our digestive juices produces digestive enzymes. They act locally. Endocrine means it acts distantly. And the adrenal glands are an endocrine gland, but they also have a neurological function. So before you even have a hormonal negative feedback system, which I was talking about, you have this nervous system response, which is how adrenaline. So when your sympathetic nervous system says, oh my gosh, we're in danger, a tiger, a snake, COVID. Oh my gosh. Immediately get adrenaline response. And what's adrenaline's job? Let's get the heart rate up and the blood pressure up and get the heck out of here. Yeah. Run for your life, right? But you can't fuel that without the cortisol, because you're only going to run for about however 400 calories is going to last you. You got about an hour's worth of running away before cortisol's got to kick in and start pulling the stored sugar out of your body fat and out of your liver and trying to get it so that you can continue to get away from this danger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So it does, it's a nervous system response, but then it becomes an endocrine response.
Yeah. And in terms of survival, first, obviously, in terms of like hierarchy of survival, first, your body wants you to be safe, and then, do anything that is related to reproduction. Correct?
Oh, yeah. So, and reproduction is actually way down there. Yeah. So it's be safe. Oh my gosh, I just ate a meal. Okay. Well, if you just ate and you got to run away, you're either going to vomit it up or you're going to have the poops.
Yes.
like your body's saying, this has got to get out of here. I can't be carrying this load. So there, all the other systems say, oh my gosh, we're in danger. We got to do this first. Right. And then reproduction. So one of the interesting things that I have found is before I went into my integrative practice and developed my Genesis Gold product, I did infertility work with women for like 6 years. And then I went and did infertility work with couples, for a couple of years. And what I found was if I got them healthy at a nutritional level, at a mindset level, at a lifestyle level, got them sleeping, got them meditating, got them exercising, got them a little closer to their ideal body weight. And ideal for, this is not by an insurance chart. This is what their body needs to make hormones. I needed to gain 5 pounds, which I did when I started taking my Genesis Gold, in order to make hormones to have periods. Okay. Everybody has a different ideal. Okay. What they need. So when I worked with all of those factors, they would be able to get pregnant. Now, since I've had the Genesis Gold, because the hypothalamus controls all that, I hardly do any infertility work because the hypothalamus says, okay, this is what needs to be cleaned up. We need a detox. We need to support the adrenals. We need to, okay, now we can get those ovaries on board. All right, we're ready to stop popping out those eggs. Everything's healthy here. We have enough fat storage. We have enough thyroid hormone. Everything's good. So it's just been really interesting that it never made sense to me to send my patients who were unhealthy, their bodies were unhealthy. If they weren't getting pregnant, there was something wrong in terms of their health.
Yeah.
So totally. If I could got them healthy, it didn't make sense to send them over to a reproductive endocrinologist to just do IVF and then and potentially have an unhealthy pregnancy.
Totally.
And so I stopped sending them. I didn't need to because we got them healthy.
Love that. I love that so much. Can you talk a little bit about exercise? Because I know exercise, especially, the high intensity exercise, it depletes or it stimulates the production of cortisol. And so in times like right now, what are your ideas about exercise? Should we be exercising, or maybe there is some other things that you recommend? And then the next thing I want you to talk about is how can we stimulate progesterone nutritionally?
Okay. So in terms of exercise, yes, we should be exercising right now. Should we be doing intense, high intensity exercise? No, because you're just going to continue to tell the hypothalamus and your body that you truly are running away from danger. So the exercise, this is my recipe for health in terms of exercise. This is what I do for my own health, what I recommend my patients to do, is that every day we do some stretching. Couple times a week, we do something that's related to weight resistance. And I'm not a gym rat. I do, like plank poses. Yoga to me is a weight resistance exercise.
Pilates.
Yeah, Pilates. I use a chair. I do, the countertops, anything strength. I've never had to do this previous to maybe 2013. My last horse died. Before that, I had horses, and the amount of manure I had to dump every day.
That was exercise.
That was my exercise. I was a farmer, right? So I didn't need to do that heavy exercise like that. But then I do some kind of every week, once a week, do what I call an LSD, a long, slow distance. I was in track when I was much younger. And so it's a great way to burn body fat, and it's very meditative. So a hike, a longer bicycle ride, you got to go at least an hour. Okay. But it's not a fast heart rate. And then if you need to lose the body fat, if you've got insulin resistance, you've got diabetes, you have heart disease, you're out of shape, then we add what I call a HIIT exercise, which is the high intensity training, but it's very, very short. I literally send my patients out 5 to 7 minutes, walk to get their heart rate up, and then find a hill and walk as fast as they can up it. If they want to jog, they can for 20 seconds. And then they come down for about a minute slowly, and then go up again for 20 seconds, do 3 20 seconds rounds, cool down for 5 to 7 minutes. It takes maybe 17 minutes altogether, 3 times a week.
Done.
And that's it. That's it. Now, am I doing this? No. What I'm doing for aerobic exercise, when I need to burn off my cortisol, is I dance.
Love that. The intuitive movement is great. Yeah. And also it makes you feel good.
And something rapid, and and it matters what you can do. You've got children at home. I take care of my grandbaby. I have she'll be 10 months old tomorrow. And I take care of her because my daughter's an ICU nurse. So we made our household into one so that we could be, we were maintaining social distance, but we became one household so I could help her with the baby. And because she's on shift work. So when I have the baby, my aerobic exercise is I'm dancing to toddler music, baby music. Put your left foot in.
Yeah.
What? It works.
And what about nutrition? What can we do nutritionally to stimulate progesterone? Or maybe now it's a good time to, to do something therapeutic in conjunction with nutrition to stimulate progesterone?
So basically, you want to support progesterone and not necessarily stimulate it. You want to support your body's ability to make its own hormones and go with it, the wisdom it has to say, now is not a good time to conceive. Oh, yes, now everything's safe in the world now. We can conceive now. We can get regular. But the way that you do it is nutrition is key. And the biggest thing with hormones is you need to be eating the essential fats in order for your body to make the hormones, okay? So, and that means that you get all of the essential fatty acids. The Mediterranean-based diet, which is basically based on olive oil, which is the monounsaturated fat as the main fat, is a really healthy diet for maintaining hormones. And yes, I'm biased. My last name's Maragopoulos and I'm Italian, but it's been proven to be a very healthy diet to maintain, for health purposes, low diabetes, low heart disease, low rates of obesity. And Mediterranean women tend to have a high rate of fertility. They have very long fertile years, from the time they're menarchal at their first period to the time they go into menopause. They just have a longer fertility window, which means they age less rapidly.
Slower, yeah.
So that it's plant-based diet. It's a plant-based diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables. It's not pasta-based. It's plant-based.
Yeah.
And then some whole grains and super healthy fats. And yes, there's a little bit of red meat. And yes, there's some dairy, but it's at the very top of the pyramid. It's very little of that. And there's not that much sweets. Other monounsaturated fats are great too. I love avocado oil is another monounsaturated fat that I'll use to replace olive oil. I use that mainly to do high heat cooking. If I stir fry or something, because it can handle it. But so you've got to get enough fats in the diet. And I like to see at least 30% of my patients' calories, personally, is coming from fat. And 1/3 of those should be saturated. I'm not talking all monos or polys. You need some saturated fat. Your cell membranes need saturated fat in order to make hormone receptors. So you asked me, how do I make more progesterone? If you don't have doorways to get it in, it won't work. So we need healthy cells. Okay. So that's
is that the reason why recently, and I'm not a dairy person regularly, but I'm telling you, Deborah, lately, I am just driving myself insane with my desire and craving for butter. Like, it's just, is this the reason why it's happening? It's like my body is.
Well, the reason that you want fat right now, like butter, like a saturated fat, is it has to do with your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands, when you are really stressed, yes, some people will crave sugar. That's not uncommon, but it's mainly fat, and it tends to be a salted fat.
Yes.
It's a salty fat. And there's something about butter and cheese and, I'll find that I'll crave I can't get enough of salted nuts when I'm really stressed.
Yes, nuts. Yes.
Yeah. And like a salted carb, like a pretzel or something doesn't do it. It has to be a fat that has salt in it. And that's because there's other hormones that the adrenal makes that kind of runs your system. And one is called aldosterone, and it controls your salt water balance. And aldosterone, DHEA, which is the other hormone that the adrenals make that actually helps you metabolize your protein and fat, and cortisol, which becomes cortisone when you're done with it. So all those 4 hormones are all made from fat. So when your adrenals are stressed and it doesn't have enough precursor fat to actually make those hormones, you crave the fat. That then throws off your salt water balance, so you start craving salt as well. So it's not uncommon to be craving, these fatty, salty kind of foods when you're under stress. So you just want to choose better foods.
Yeah.
Not the potato chips.
Yes. No. I'm pretty good with those things. But yes, the salted nuts, yes. Butter, yes. 35% cream, like heavy cream. It's crazy. I've never had these kind of cravings before.
Your adrenals are stressed and they're robbing the progesterone. They can make a little bit of their own, about 5% of your needs. 95% is made by the ovaries of progesterone that the adrenals use to make cortisol. So when you're under stress, more is being pulled. The ovaries make so much progesterone, 10 to 50 times more progesterone than estrogen. People will talk about estrogen dominance. You will never make more estrogen than progesterone, ever. I don't care how, even when you're menopausal, there'll still be more progesterone than estrogen. And the reason for that is progesterone is such a vital mother hormone, such a vital mother hormone. It becomes so many other things. Okay. So you do make more progesterone in weight. Estrogen dominance, you've heard of that term.
Yeah, of course.
Dominance. Estrogen dominance basically means you're making more estrogen in ratio to progesterone. Like, so you should have 10 to 50 times more progesterone to estrogen at all times. So if you drop down to 2 times progesterone to estrogen, that's estrogen dominance. Okay. And the way I want you to think about estrogen and progesterone is they're partners. Yes. So estrogen is a growth factor. It fertilizes everything. It makes your skin lush and your eyesight brilliant and your brain creative, and it gives you your sex drive and that juiciness everywhere. Vagina, skin, mouth. You know, when women have dry mouth in menopause because their estrogen levels are low, dry vagina, everything's drying out, right? The healthy hair, the healthy lining of the colon, the vessels, but it will feed tumors too. It's indiscriminate. So progesterone's the gardener. It knows the difference between the roses and the weeds. So it allows estrogen to feed the roses, and it literally will kill off tumors. It actually triggers what's called the p53 gene in tissues that are abnormal or no longer needed, and it's the death gene, and it'll tell those tissues to die.
So it mitigates it.
Yeah. So progesterone that's why you make so much of it.
I love that. And in terms of supplementation, I've heard things like magnesium, things like zinc right now. Can you talk of some other things that's a good idea to supplement with right now?
For stress or for progesterone?
For progesterone. Okay. Well, for both, I guess.
Well, basically your diet should cover it. And the main supplementation that I'm actually recommending for my patients, so besides the hypothalamic support with the Genesis Gold, I'm actually having them do a little B12 and folic acid because it helps with the metabolic pathways, and do it as a sublingual because that way you get the most B12 and folic acid. And
so I'm sorry to cut you off, but B12 even to people who are eating meat?
Yes, because of the stress. Okay. Because of stress. The amount of meat you'd have to be like a red meat eater, like on a daily basis, which I don't recommend. So if you're following a Mediterranean diet, you may get red meat once a week, maybe twice a month. You don't have a lamb because it's a holiday, you're not getting it that often. So you may need some extra B12, definitely if you're vegetarian. But definitely during stress. So right now during the stress, that's like that. Those are the vitamins I'm recommending. Vitamin C. I prefer you get it from your citrus fruits: lemon, lime, grapefruit, oranges. But if not, you want to take some extra vitamin C because it definitely will help boost that immune system and help those adrenals. And then vitamin D is in David. Yep. That soluble vitamin. And right now I'm recommending for my patients during this stressor to boost their immune system, 10,000 international units a day for a few weeks to build their vitamin D levels up. Yeah. Because it can help. There's some really good studies that show that if you do get the COVID, it can actually help your body fight it off. So after a few weeks, then drop it down to 5,000. If you do get sick, bump it back up again. But vitamin D is crucial to allowing hormones to get into cells. It actually helps to make the receptor sites more receptive to your hormones. So if you don't have enough vitamin D, it doesn't matter how much progesterone is floating around in the bloodstream, it can't get in. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So if you have a healthy diet, you're getting enough protein. The amount of protein you should be eating should be equivalent to how much lean body mass you have. So there's all kinds of calculators out there. You can do online calculators. I like the Navy calculator. It's, there's online calculators. You use some measurements, you use your body weight, you figure out your body fat, and it gives you your lean body mass. So for instance, if I'm 120 pounds and I have 100 pounds of lean body mass, I need to feed those 100 pounds of lean body mass. I need at least 1/2 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So I need to be eating 50 grams of protein every day to maintain my lean body mass. If I don't, I will eat my own muscles and protein out of my tissues, and I'll be losing lean body mass. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is certainly I don't want to do at menopause because
I
don't want to do that.
Well, one thing I did notice is not only me, most of us are really fed well right now because there is nothing
Yes.
else to do. We eat really well.
Right.
We're overfed, in fact.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and well, oftentimes it's too many calories, which can be a stress too. So that's why you have to move. That's why you have to exercise right now. You have to be active. Take walks, I'm asking my people, even if you don't have a dedicated exercise program, 3 times a day I want you to get up and move. Climb your stairs for 10 minutes, dance for 10 minutes, walk around your backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, do something, because you're going to end up paying for it later.
Yeah.
By putting on this extra body fat that your body, because you're in a hibernation mode.
Yeah. Yeah. Deborah, I know you need to go soon, and I really wanted to ask you this question.
Okay.
We talked about female bodies responding to stress. Can you talk a little bit about how male bodies are responding to stress right now?
Well, they respond a little differently. So they will not lose their fertility necessarily due to an acute stressor like this, but they can lose their fertility to a long-term stressor, like long-term health issues. So, but they respond in terms of their adrenals in the same way. And what happens with the stress with males is that their adrenal glands are revved up. And so they go into the fight or flight mode as well. And oftentimes it's more fight than flight. So there's a lot more of
Aggression.
There's a lot of energy that builds up, and there's no place to take it. There's no place to go. And honest to God, this is a dangerous situation we're in this lockdown for women and children, and men who are living with abusers.
Abusive, yeah.
Yeah. And because of this, it's stressful, and that testosterone is really high, and it's building up. I need to fight something. And this is an invisible thing. Unless you're an ICU nurse or an ICU doctor, you don't have any capabilities of fighting this thing. Like, there's no fisticuffs here. So they're very frustrated. So my suggestion for men, you definitely need to exercise, and you need to find some projects to do. I'm sure there's things around the house that need some fixing. You need to burn off that energy. And if it means you throw some, you put up a basketball hoop and throw some baskets, whatever you need to do, we got to kind of think of men of all ages at this point, kind of like teenage boys with too much testosterone on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They need to burn it off. Okay. And believe me, it'll help us as females. That we need to get, like, mama bears and papa bears shouldn't be in the same cave for so long together.
All the time. I know. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I know.
So if they could do some things, and that may mean that we need to guide them, here, this needs to be fixed.
Please build the deck.
Get outside to the garage.
Build the deck. Build the deck. Build the deck.
Put some shutters up. We need a new roof. Get up there. Fix it.
I love it.
Believe me, they'll feel a lot better.
Yeah. Do you have to go, or do we have 5 more minutes?
I just have a couple more minutes. I have another.
Okay. I know you have another call right after this. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you just a few questions from my questions about you as a woman.
Okay.
I don't want, I know women are waiting for this. In one word, if you can just pick one word, how would you define feminine power? How would you substitute it? What is feminine power for you?
So instead of saying power per se, what is feminine power?
Yes.
I think feminine power is creativity.
Oh, I love that so much. Love it.
And it's more than reproduction. It's everything that we create. We put in our, beautiful vibration, our vibes into everything we do, whether it's gardening, our cooking, our, producing babies, our producing podcasts, our writing books. When we can tap into that aspect of our feminine power, we can literally grow these amazing, amazing things that can change the world. And it needs to be a piece of you.
Love it. Next one. What makes you feel confident?
My health, the fact that I feel very strong and vital and healthy. I feel like there's nothing I can't do.
Love that. What makes you feel energized?
Nature. I love being outside with nature. And I also feel very energized when I'm working with people that need my help. I'm an extrovert, so I feed off other people's energies, and it's like it kind of pours through me.
Beautiful. What makes you feel sexy?
Oh my gosh. Probably just being in my own skin. It wasn't in the beginning when I was your age, I didn't feel sexy in my own skin. But as I grew older, I realized how sexy I am in my own skin. And I just really enjoy my body. I just, I'm so happy with my strength, my vitality. And so it's just kind of an attitude of, this is who I feel I am. There is no asexuality. It's like it's in everything.
Beautiful. Yeah, totally. And it's part of creativity, which I love.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, Deborah, this has been so much fun. Just before I let you go, can you tell people how they can connect with you? Where can they get more of you?
Okay, so my website is called Genesis Gold. So if you go to my Genesis Gold website, I have
all kinds of .com?
Yeah, it's a .com. I have all kinds of freebies. I have a free hormone reboot training. My book is on there as well. It's part of the training. So it's called Hormones in Harmony. And so you go to Genesis Gold. I have a YouTube channel as well that's under my full name, Deborah Maragopoulos, FNP. And then lots and lots. I've got hundreds of videos on there right now that talk everything about hormones and symptoms and low, high, foods, you name it, related to hormones. So
okay, social media, do you want to mention any social media?
Yeah, I have a free hormone support group. You can access it through our hormone reboot training, and we can get you in, and that's really been really successful. I run a live Facebook Live every Thursday and answer all your questions. I'm not your healthcare provider, but you're going to get those kind of answers because a lot of people can't reach their healthcare providers right now.
Yes. All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. I want to have you on again to talk about your food journey, because I know it's one.
Yeah, that's a
huge
one.
Yeah.
With food, huge.
Yeah. So we'll connect again. Thanks. Bye. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Wait, before you go, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, I want to know about it. So snap a picture of you listening to this episode and share it on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram, you can tag me at Dorit Palvanov Coaching. So Dorit is spelled as Dorit and Palvanov spelled as Palvanov Coaching, so it's all one word. Or you can use the hashtag Confident, Energized, and Sexy Mama Podcast. You see, my personal goal beyond having amazing conversations with guests or hosting solo episodes is to increase the visibility for this platform and these messages to be shared and heard by women who need it the most. And there's no way that I can do this on my own. So I'm asking you, the incredible community of confident, energized, and sexy mamas, to help me with this goal. So whether you're coming to me through iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening to the show from, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. This would mean the world to me, and it's so helpful for other mothers who are looking for this information. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.